If you want your program to do something only when a certain condition is met, for example, showing an alert when a button is pressed, then a conditional statement might be what you're looking for. Conditional statements control how code is executed in your application, and this is a concept I will discuss shortly. Hi, I'm Victor, and today on Height Above Sea Level, we'll be looking at conditional statements in C#. Before we get started, if you want to talk more about this kind of thing, be sure to follow me on Twitch at Height Above Sea Level, where I do some live coding sessions as well as try and answer some of your questions as best I can. This video builds off of what we learned in the Booleans and operators videos, so if you're not familiar with those concepts, I suggest watching those other two videos first, and I will link them to the top right of your screen. And if you are, then let's get started. Alright, conditional statements. Conditional statements are part of what is known as control flow, and I mentioned this in the intro. Control flow is just controlling the way the code gets executed in your program. So we're going to take a look at this in a second. So if you look at an if statement, it has multiple execution paths. So that means if one thing is true, if a condition is true, then we go this way. If it's not, we go this other way. But let's look at if statements in C#. If statements is a first conditional statement, and the other is called a switch statement. Starting with if statements that you may have seen in other videos that I've been making on this playlist, an if statement is declared like this in C#. You can say if, a parenthesis, and inside here is the condition, and curly braces, and inside here is where your code goes. This is the long method, but you can use what's known as code snippets. You press IF for if, tab once, tab twice. And then once you have the condition here, let's say condition here, you press enter and you're in the code block. So that's a little snippet that could be helpful. So let's look at an example. If true, we write something on the console, CW, we say condition is true. And if you press Ctrl plus F5, it says the condition is true. Remember in Booleans, the condition passed here, if this is true, that means we now execute anything that's inside this code block. It can be multiple lines of code. It doesn't have to be one line of code. But if this is false, then this won't be executed. And you can see this when I press Ctrl and F5. Nothing is written. This press any key to continue is just the default behavior when the application ends, the console application ends. So I can press anything like even J and that close the application. Even see an error here saying it will always be false, but for now let's just put true. Okay, moving on. Let's try and test a different condition. So let's say age is equals to 10. Now we say if the age is greater than 10, okay, actually let's make the age 11. So if the age is greater than 10, we write the condition is true. Is age, remember variables, is age 11 greater than 10? Yes. 11 is greater than 10. The condition is true. That means anything inside this code block will be executed. So Ctrl and F5. The condition is true. I can even add something else like this is another line that's executed. Ctrl and F5. You see anything that is inside here will be executed. But if age is less than 10, this won't be executed. However, let's say you wanted to do something if the age is not less than 10. That's where an else statements come in. So if the age is not less than 10, this is executed, this else statement. This is like the default statement that will be executed whenever the if is not true. So we can say the condition is not true. If I run this with Ctrl and F5, the condition is not true. You see, is age 11 less than 10? That is not true. Anything here will not be executed. Anything in here will be executed again. I can duplicate this and say This is another line that's executed. Control and F5. You see, anything inside this else statement is executed when this is not true. I can even, let me put this in a, just so we know what we're talking about. This area is for if statements. So now that you've seen that if the condition is true, this is executed, and if it's not true, this is executed. What about if you want to do something in between? So let's say if the condition is not less than 10, but you want to do something if it is greater than 10, you add an else if statement. And this is how you write an else if statement. So if age is greater than 10, we write the child can go on a ride on the ride. Let's say we're making an application for testing to see if children are allowed on a certain ride in the park or something. So we could say if the age is less than 10, the age of the child is less than 10, we can say the child needs parents to go on this ride. And if none of these are true, we can say CW, tab twice. The child is 10 years old. And I'll let you know why I'm doing, this one is more specific. So let's look at this, in all of this at once. So if the age is less than 10, this will be executed. But if it's not less than 10, all this is ignored. We go to the second check. So we check again, is the age greater than 10? Is 11 greater than 10? Yes. So we write this on the console, we ignore this, and we ignore this. Only one of these can ever be executed. You'll never have all these executed, only one can be executed. And that's the one that has a condition that is true. And it starts from the top, going all the way to the bottom. So check this, not true. This is true. This is executed. Everything else ignored. Let's try, see this on the console. Control and F5. The child can go on the ride. And why is that? Because the child's age is greater than 10. And if the child's age is less than 10, let's say it's 9, Control and F5, the child needs a parent to go on this ride. Remember, this line gets executed. We've met our condition. That means we're ignoring everything else. As soon as we meet our condition, everything else is ignored. But let's say, what if the child is neither less than 10 years old and is neither greater than 10 years old? So that means the child has to be 10 years old. So is 10 less than 10? No. 10 is equal to 10. Is 10 greater than 10? No. So this is false. Ignore this. This is also false. Ignore this. So if you have nothing else to compare, execute this. And if you write this on the console with Control and F5, the child is 10 years old. And that is a bit of an intro to if statements. One more thing is you can do with if statements is you can have an if statement inside an if statement, and this is called nesting. So let's say you wanted to do something else in here. If the child is 10 years old, now they need to meet another criteria, and we can say height. We give this 140. Let's say 140 centimeters. So now that we've ensured that all the children, we've filtered out so that we only have the children that are less than 10 years old. So let's put age here 9. We only want the child who's less than 10 years old. Now that we've met that criteria, we need to make sure that the child height is greater than 100. And if it is, we say the child is tall enough for the ride. So two things here. The child has to be 10 years old, no less than 10 years old, and the height has to be greater than 100 for this to be executed. Otherwise, if the child is less than 10 years old and is not greater than 100 centimeters tall, this is not executed. This is the second check. But this will be. because it's inside this block. I hope that's not too confusing. But let's see what happens. So the child is 9. We remember we checked this. Now that he's 9, we need to check the height. Are they taller than 100? Right now it's on 40, so this will be executed. Control F5. The child is tall enough for this ride. Child needs a parent to go on this ride. So let me just change this to greater than and change this to less than, so we're not confused. And put the child's age at 11. All right, so Control F5. Child is tall enough for this ride. You can say the child can go on this ride. Let me just change this real quick. Child needs a parent to go on this ride. All right. Much better. The child can go on this ride. The child is tall enough for this ride. You see, this is only executed if the height is greater than 100. So let's say if the child height is 90. The child can go on the ride, yes, because the age is greater than 10. But this is a bit confusing. The child, we're not saying the child is tall enough for this ride. Let me change this. Let me change this to his child is really tall. So if the height is greater than 100, it'll let us know if it's a tall child or not. But as long as it's older than 10, remember this, anything inside here will be executed, but anything inside here will not be executed. And I plan on covering why this is executed and for this, and this is executed. This here is executed only for this. And the reason why is called something called scope. And I plan on covering this in a later video. So if you want to know, I'll expound on this a little more. So if you want to know more about that, then consider subscribing to the channel. But for now, I'm not digging into it too much because you don't need to know any of that, much of that just yet to understand this. All right. So that is it for nesting. You can even go a step further and add another if statement here. And then you can keep doing this as much as you want, but it's not recommended because it's going to get messy. It's harder to maintain. It's harder to read. And if you're working with other people, then they won't be very happy with you. Real quick, if you're enjoying the content, please consider supporting me over on Patreon at patreon.com/height above sea level. And all patrons will get access to this custom Sakura theme that I came up with. That is, as you can see, I'm using right now. And all the instructions on how to set it up are available on my Patreon. So if you're enjoying the content, consider supporting me and you will get these colors over on patreon.com/height above sea level. So that is it for if statements. Actually, one more thing. If you want the child to be greater than 10 years old, and remember the AND operator, the height has to be greater than 100. You can add an extra condition. Remember this AND operator? I'm going to touch on this very quick, the AND and the OR operator. So for this to be true, the child has to be greater than 10 years old and the height has to be greater than 100. Both of them has to be true. So if age is 10 and the height is not greater than 100, this won't be executed. But if age is greater than 10 and the height is greater than 100, this will be executed. So as you can see, age is 11, but height is 90. So this is going to be false. And this is also going to be false. And also this is the one that will execute. I'm getting a bit complex here, but let me just show you this real quick. 110. These are the conditions for this line to be executed. If I press Control and F5, the child can go on this ride. But if the child is 9 years old, you see this is false. Age 9 is not greater than 10. So this is all false. All of them have to be true. And then this is the one that will be executed. The child needs a parent to go on this ride because age is less than 10, 9. But even though height is over 100, age has also be greater than 10. But you can do the OR operator. That means only one of these has to be true. So if age is greater than 10, this is executed. Height is greater than 100 and this is not true, this will be executed. So right now, is age greater than 10? Is 9 greater than 10? No. But the height is greater than 100. So this will be executed. The child can go on this ride. This one. But if you change this to an and, like that, it says something else. All right, I hope I didn't confuse you too much. Let's look at switch statements. Now, switch statements are similar to if statements, but instead of requiring a Boolean value for the condition, what we're doing is we're testing a pattern. This can also, the value here can also be a Boolean, it can be an integer, it can be a string. So the requirement is not a Boolean value. It can be any pattern, anything that's int, string, Boolean as well. And then we're testing that against multiple options that we define. So what do I mean by this? First, let's take a look at how to declare a switch statement in C#. So you write switch, parentheses, and then like that. Just like before, you can also do it this way, where you write switch, and then you tab twice. So switch, switch, tab twice, and it writes for you that code snippet. But for the sake of this in little demo, I will write it the long way out. Now, a switch statement is very, very similar to an if statement, but instead of using the word if, we use the word case. Let's look at how to use this with an enum. Remember enums? We made this enum right here, the day enum. Remember this, it's in the enums video. If you haven't watched the enums video and you're not familiar with that, I will link that to the top right of your screen, and I would recommend checking it out before you proceed. But if you're familiar with those, then let's go on. So let's say today, we say day dot to Monday. Today is Monday. But want to do something if today is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So in the switch statement, the thing you're testing goes inside the parentheses. So it's today. Now case, let me just write this out. I'll explain. So what we're saying here, if case, if today is equals to day.monday, we do something, we write something like, we say it's the first day of the work week. All right. So, and then we say break. Why do we say break? Because we're going to write a couple more of these, and in order to make sure that only one of them is executed, we need to say break. But let's look at this the way it is right now. So switch. Today, this is what we're testing. We're going to test this against multiple options that we define. So this is one option. We're going to define one for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Today is Monday. Right on the console, it's the first day of the week, and break. But if today is Tuesday, copy that to Control-C, Control-V, and then I say Tuesday. We can now say it's Taco Tuesday. Again, if today, case if today is Tuesday, right on the console, it's Taco Tuesday, break. Now, when you have multiple case statements like this break ensures that this isn't executed. If you don't include this break, this will be executed and everything else after that. So let's look at another one. If today is Wednesday, we can say happy hump day. And if today is Thursday, we can say it's, sorry, if today is Thursday, we can say that it's Friday Junior. Now, I'm going to do something special for Friday, default. You see that keyword there? This is like the else statement. Remember, else is executed when all these, any if statement or else if statement above it is not true. So if it's not Monday, if it's not Tuesday, if it's not Wednesday or Thursday, then this is a default that will always be executed. Then we can say, cheers to the weekend. And then just like before, break. So as you can see, let me comment this out, Control K, Control C. And this is our switch statement. Remember, today variable is set to Monday. And then that's what you want to test if it's Monday. So if it's Monday, the first scenario, day is Monday, right on the console. It's the first day of the week. If today is Tuesday, write this. If today here is Wednesday, write this. If today, Thursday, write this, and so on. But if it's neither of these, then this will always be executed. And it's always good to have a default when none of these criteria is met. All right, let me press Control and F5 so we see this. Remember, today is Monday, so what do you think is going to be written? Well, let's find out. It's the first day of the work week. Again, if I change this to Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday. You see, it's checking this. This is the first one that was checked. It wasn't Monday, so ignore it. Remember, just like if statement, if the first condition is not met, nothing gets executed, we go to the next one. Same thing for, if you say Wednesday, Control and F5, happy hump day. And this goes on for Thursday, but let's say today is Friday. Friday. Cheers to the weekend, because it's neither Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but the default, the one that always gets executed when everything fails. It's like a fail-safe. It's this one, cheers to the weekend, so it must be Friday. And that right there is a switch statement. Now in C#, there's something else known as a switch expression, which I won't cover, but I will link the article in the description below. It's a different way of writing a switch statement like this. And this is, I didn't include it because I felt like it was a bit too advanced, but I just want to mention it in the event that you see something like that or someone mentions it, then you know that is the semantics of it's similar to a switch statement that you see here, but written a different way. Now, the other thing about switch statements is that you can also use it with number. Let's say, let me just use year is 2010. So you can say year. But one thing you'll notice is errors. Why these errors? Because we're comparing a year, which is a number, to an enum. You can only compare a number to a number, enum to enum, string to string, and so on and so forth. So if I put 12 there, you see the error is gone. If I put 1 there, I put like 5, I can even put 14. So you see the error is gone because I'm comparing a number to a number. Remember, if year is equals to 12, this. But if it doesn't meet any of these criteria, then this is what gets executed. And even Control and F5, cheers to the weekend, because none of these criteria is met. And that is it for a switch statement. Now, quickly before I wind up, the biggest question that most people will be asking themselves, which to use? So, which one should you use? Do you use a switch statement? Do you use an if statement? When is the best time to use one? What are the strengths of the other? And so on and so forth. So what I do, and this depends on the type of person you're, everyone uses them differently. But if I have a lot of things I want to do inside after a condition is met, Control K, Control U to uncomment that, then I'll use an if statement. Let's say I want to do multiple lines of code, and this is going to be a huge block. I'm doing many things. Like if the age is 10 and height is 100, maybe I say the child can go on this ride and not this one. Then they're allowed to go to this part of the park and not this one. So if I wanted to do that, I'd use an if statement because I want to do a lot of logic. I feel like switch statements work better for me when I have something simple like and I have multiple options. You know, if statement, I only have one condition that I'm testing, but with switch statements, it's cleaner when I have one condition here and many options. Like you see, I can put like 6 or 7 of these and it looks fine. But if I was using an if statement, I probably have to do something like, I'd have many else ifs like this, and I feel like this eventually gets a bit messy. So you can use my approach where I use if statements for if you have a lot of logic, or you can use your own approach and use whatever you see fit. But I also see that switch statements are also best for like you have 1 line of code or 2 lines of code in here, and yeah, it all depends on the scenario. But if you're stuck, you can try my method and see if it helps you out. But that's all I have for you guys. Did you learn something new today? Did I go too fast? And have you used switch and if statements before in other programming languages? Let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to support me on Patreon if you did enjoy the content, and you will get this custom Sakura theme for Visual Studio. Again, I stream on Twitch at height above sea level. If you want to talk more about this kind of thing live on stream. And if that doesn't work, come hang out on Discord instead. Just click the link in the description below and become a member of the Water Tribe today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, from me to you, deuces.